next chapter. Jondrette almost weeps, chapter 9. The room was so dark the people coming from outdoors felt as if they were entering a cellar, so the two newcomers moved with some hesitation, hardly discerning the dim forms around them, while they were seen and examined with perfect ease by the tenants of the garret, whose eyes were accustomed to this twilight. Monsieur Leblanc approached with his kind and compassionate look, and said to the father, "Monsieur, in this package you will find some new clothes, some stockings, and some blankets." "Our angelic benefactor overwhelms us," said Jondrette, bowing down to the floor. Then, stooping to his eldest daughter's ear while the two visitors were examining the dreadful room, he added rapidly in a whisper, "See, what did I tell you? Rags, no money. They're all alike. Tell me, how is the letter to the old blubber lip signed?" "Fabantou," answered the daughter. "The dramatic artist. Good." This was lucky for Jondrette, for that very moment Monsieur Leblanc turned toward him and said, with the appearance of someone trying to remember a name, "I see that you are certainly to be pitied, Monsieur." "Fabantou," said Jondrette quickly. "Monsieur Fabantou. Yes, that's it. I remember. Dramatic artist, Monsieur, with successful plays to his credit." Here Jondrette evidently thought the moment had come to make an impression on the philanthropist. In a tone of voice that belongs both to the braggadocio of the juggler at the fair and the humility of the beggar at the highway, he proclaimed, "Pupil of Talma, Monsieur, I am a pupil of Talma. Fortune once smiled on me. Alas, now it is the turn of misfortune. Look, my benefactor, no bread, no fire. My poor darlings have no fire. My only chair unseated. A broken window. In such weather as this. My spouse in bed sick." "Poor woman," said Leblanc. "My child injured," added Jondrette. The child, her attention diverted by the arrival of the strangers, was staring at the young lady, and had stopped her sobbing. "Why don't you cry? Why don't you scream?" said Jondrette to her in a whisper. At the same time he pinched her injured hand. All this with the skill of a juggler. The little one shrieked. The adorable young girl, whom Marius in his heart called his Ursula, went to her quickly. "Poor dear child," she said. "Look, my beautiful young lady," pursued Jondrette, her bleeding wrist. "It is an accident that happened on a machine where she worked for 6 sous a day. It may be necessary to cut off her arm." "Really?" said the old gentleman in alarm. The little girl, taking this seriously, began to sob again, all the harder. "Yes, alas, yes, my benefactor," answered the father. For some moments Jondrette had been looking at the philanthropist in a strange way. Even while speaking, he seemed to scrutinize him closely, as if he were trying to recall something. Suddenly, taking advantage of a moment when the newcomers were anxiously questioning the smaller girl about her wounded hand, he passed over to his wife, who was lying in her bed, looking overwhelmed and stupid, and whispered to her quickly, "Just look at that man." Then, turning toward Monsieur Leblanc and continuing his lamentation, "You see, Monsieur, for clothes I have nothing but a blouse of my wife's, and all torn at that. In deepest winter I cannot go out for lack of a coat. If I had any sort of coat, I'd go to see Monsieur Mars, who knows and likes me. Mademoiselle Mars, who knows and likes me. She is still living in the Rue de la Tour des Dames, isn't she? You know, Monsieur, we played together in the provinces. I shared her laurels. Célimène would come to my rescue, Monsieur. Elmira would give alms to Belisarius, but no, nothing, and not a sou in the house. My wife sick, and not a sou. My daughter dangerously injured, and not a sou. My spouse has choking fits at her age, and then the nervous system has something to do with it. She needs help, and my daughter too, but the doctor, the druggist, how can I pay them?" Okay, so we'll continue that chapter, that paragraph, and then go into the next paragraph. Jondrette lied. 4 quarters would have made only 40 francs, and he could not have owed for 4. It was not 6 months since Marius had paid for 2. Monsieur Leblanc took 5 francs from his pocket and laid them on the table. Jondrette had time to mutter into the ear of his elder daughter, "The beast, what does he think I'm going to do with 5 francs? He won't even pay for my chair at my window. I must cover my expenses." Meanwhile, Monsieur Leblanc had taken off a large brown overcoat that he was wearing over his blue surtout, and hung it over the back of the chair. "Monsieur Fabantou," he said, "I only have these 5 francs with me. I'm going to take my daughter home, and I will return this evening. It is this evening that you have to pay." Jondrette's face lit up with a strange expression. He answered quickly, "Yes, my noble Monsieur, at 8 o'clock I must be at my landlord's." "I'll be here at 6 o'clock, and I'll bring you the 60 francs. "My benefactor!" cried Jondrette distractedly, and he added in an undertone, "Take a look at him, wife." Monsieur Leblanc took the arm of the beautiful young girl and turned toward the door. "Till this evening, my friends," he said. "6 o'clock," said Jondrette. "6 precisely." Just then the overcoat on the chair caught the eye of the oldest daughter. "Monsieur," she said, "you forgot your coat." Jondrette threw a crushing glance at his daughter, accompanied by a huge shrug of the shoulders. Monsieur Leblanc turned and answered with a smile, "I did not forget it. I'm leaving it." "Oh, my patron," said Jondrette, "my noble benefactor, I am dissolving in tears. Let me take you to your carriage." "If you go out," replied M. Leblanc, "put on the overcoat. It is really very cold." Jondrette did not have to be told twice. He quickly put on the brown coat, and all three went out, Jondrette preceding the two strangers. Marius had not missed a thing in this whole scene, and yet he had actually seen nothing of it. His eyes had remained on the young girl. His heart had, so to speak, seized on her, and enveloped her entirely, from her first step into the garret. During the whole time she was there, he had lived that life of ecstasy that suspends material perceptions and precipitates the whole soul into a single point. He did not contemplate the girl, but that light in a satin cloak and a velvet hat. Had the star Sirius entered the room, he could not have been more dazzled. While the young girl was opening the bundle, unfolding the clothes and the blankets, questioning the sick mother kindly, and the little injured girl tenderly, he watched her every motion, endeavored to hear her words. He knew her eyes, her forehead, her beauty, her stature, her gait. He did not know the sound of her voice. He thought he had caught a few words of it once at Luxembourg, but could not be absolutely sure. He would have given 10 years of his life to hear it, to carry a little of that music in his soul. But all was lost in Jondrette's wretched displays and trumpeting. This added a real anger to Marius's transports. He looked at her lovingly. He could not imagine it really was the divine creature he was seeing in the midst of the misshapen beings of this monstrous lair. He seemed to see a humming-bird among toads. When she went out, he had only one thought: to follow her, to cling to her traces, not to leave her without knowing where she lived, at least not to lose her again after having so miraculously found her. He leaped down from the bureau and took his hat. As he was putting his hand on the bolt and was about to go out, he reflected and stopped. The hall was long, the stairs steep, Jondrette a great talker. Undoubtedly, M. Leblanc had not yet gotten into his carriage. If he should turn around in the hallway, or even on the stairs, or on the doorstep, and see him, Marius, in that house, he would certainly be alarmed and would find means to escape him again. And once more it would be all over. What could he do? Wait a little. But during the delay the carriage might leave. Marius was perplexed. At last he took the risk and left his room. There was nobody in the hall. He ran to the stairs. There was nobody on the stairs. He hurried down and reached the boulevard in time to see a fiacre turn the corner on the Rue du Petit Banquier and return to the city. Marius rushed in that direction. When he reached the corner of the boulevard, he saw the fiacre again going rapidly down the Rue Montfetard. It was already far away. There was no way to catch up with it. What should he do? Run after it? Impossible. And anyway, from the carriage they would certainly notice a man running after them at full speed, and the father would recognize him. Just at this moment, incredible good fortune, Marius saw a public cab passing along the boulevard empty. There was only one course to take: get into the cab and follow the fiacre. That was sure, effective, and safe. Marius made a sign to the driver to stop and cried out, "Just in time!" Marius had no tie. He had on his old working coat with some of the buttons missing, and one of his shirt's front pleats was torn. The driver stopped, winked, and reached his left hand toward Marius, rubbing his forefinger gently with his thumb. "What?" said Marius. "Pay in advance," said the driver. Marius remembered how he had only 16 sous with him. "How much?" he asked. 40 sous. "I'll pay when we get back." The driver made no reply but to whistle an air from La Piste and whip his horse on. So he didn't catch them. But remember, Monsieur Leblanc is supposed to be back later, so there's another opportunity. All right, we'll pick up with Offers of Service of Misery to Grief, chapter 11, when we get back to at the next video.